But nonetheless, the JSE has launched a sustainability and climate change disclosure guidance to support companies navigating the reporting and disclosures on environmental, social and governance factors. Shameela Soobramoney, the Chief Sustainability Officer at the JSE, joins us for the detail. Shameela, thanks so much for your time. I understand that perhaps this guidance came about as a result of some challenges that companies are finding in getting up to scratch with their ESG scorecard. So just talk a bit about the present challenges and how this guidance aims to make things easier for companies.
Thank you, Fifi. Good day, everybody. Great to be here with you today, and so topical that, Irene went before me on these issues. So when it comes to sustainability broadly, the main challenges that we've seen for corporates has been firstly in having to navigate the plethora of largely voluntary frameworks that exist that try to guide disclosure in the space, but also in actually making sense of how these issues impact their businesses. And so navigating both through that plethora of frameworks, but also making sense economically to their stakeholders, the shareholders and other stakeholders, as to why does this matter and how should we be considering that? There's always this toss-up between the focus on the financial reporting that we've had up to now and not necessarily bringing in the environmental, social and governance factors to the extent that they could be incorporated.
No, that's fine. Is that your... No, that's fine. Is that your child? Do you want to bring her on?
I'm so sorry. That's
not to worry.
That's the 2-year-old screaming. The challenges of being a woman and navigating in that lockdown environment.
And you're not even being paid for that additional task of being a mom and also being a chief sustainability officer. But Shameela, it's fine. Just continue where you picked up.
Absolutely. Thank you, Fifi. So those are the kinds of challenges that we're mainly seeing companies needing to navigate. So it's being able to make sense and bring these into the fold in their traditional way, and they're actually enabling their businesses. But I think the main challenge is in being able to apply the mind collectively, particularly at the highest level, which is the governance level, to understand how these things are material and how they impact. Now, we have advanced governance codes in the country, and actually in practice, South Africa is still one of the leading destinations in relation to sustainability disclosure in the listed context in particular. But there is a huge tail behind perhaps our biggest companies that still are really struggling with these issues. And even in some of our larger companies, there's still confusion around this. And not everybody has the luxury of massive teams of people who are able to navigate these areas yet. The issues that we're talking about are critical to the long-term resilience of those companies and the economies, and of course our pension funds that are invested on the stock market. So the need to consider these issues is critical for the long-term resilience of our markets, our economies, and yes, our own pension funds, if you think about it. And of course, there's a huge number of knock-on impacts of that. So those are the challenges that we have, but that's also the pressing need that we have. And so the guidance has aimed to try to help companies by having listened to these challenges over a few years and saying, what can we as the exchange do to help them navigate this? It's not an easy space because it's also a rapidly evolving space. The amount of change that we've seen in sustainability disclosure guidelines and frameworks, particularly in the last 2 years, has probably been unprecedented, in the last 10 or 15 years, which makes it even more complex in some areas. But the hope is that we're going to see a lot more convergence and commonality as we're seeking to look at global standards and the like. And so what we've done is said that we don't have the luxury of sitting still right now. We cannot wait for the perfect standard or the perfect opportunity. The challenges we're facing are now. South Africa is in a context where we need to transition our economy. That transition needs to be just. It's an economic transition. It's a socio-economic transition. It's a green transition that we're looking at. And so how do we help companies to start thinking about these issues, making sense of what's going on globally, and not having to necessarily employ huge amounts of consultants or big teams to be able to do that, because we need to be able to get ahead of the curve in this regard. It's going to matter to how we attract foreign direct investment, and it's going to matter to the longevity of those companies ultimately. And so that's what the guidance is intending to do. It's setting out a set of principles that will help and it's also setting a set of metrics and disclosures that will hopefully get right to the nitty-gritty of the detail and help a CFO, a CEO, as well as an administrator to very quickly get to grips with what they should start with at the very least.
All right. Shameela, I mean, I know that the guidance was launched today. I think it would be interesting to see the response from companies on the JSE, perhaps a follow-up conversation we can have later on. But thanks so much for your time. I'll let you get to your other job now, to your 2-year-old who is wanting you. That was Shameela Soobramoney, who is the Chief Sustainability Officer at the JSE. And a perfect way to